The lights in the meeting room were bright and cold. Commander Zethkar sat in his chair and watched the other aliens talk. His 4 eyes moved from one speaker to another. The meeting room was big and round. 12 different species had sent their people here to Harmony 7 space station. Today they were all angry about the same thing. Humans. Ambassador Krellnox stood up first. He was tall and thin with blue skin. His voice was loud when he spoke. The humans are moving their ships again. They went through the outer ring systems last week. Our scouts counted 47 human warships. The other aliens made worried sounds. Some clicked their tongues, others tapped their claws on the table. "This is not normal behavior," said Ambassador Veltar from the Hegemony Coalition. She had 6 arms and used all of them when she talked. "Most species tell us when they move big fleets. The humans just do it. They do not ask. They do not explain." Commander Zethkar said nothing. He had been in these meetings for 5 years. The other aliens always complained about humans. They said humans were too violent, too unpredictable, too dangerous. "We should stop them," said a young delegate named Crixel. His species had only joined the galactic community 10 years ago. "Economic sanctions first. If that does not work, we use military force." Many aliens nodded. They liked this idea. "The humans have too many weapons," added another delegate. "They build new ships every month. They train their soldiers too much. No peaceful species needs so many warriors." Zethkar kept listening. He did not speak. His people, the Vorthak, were known as careful thinkers. Other species expected him to think before talking. The meeting went on for 2 hours. The aliens shared more reports about human activities. Human ships had been seen near the Centauri systems. Human marines were training on 3 different worlds. Human factories were building more weapons. "What do you think, Commander?" "Ambassador," Krellnox finally asked, "your people have the strongest military after the humans. Should we be worried?" All eyes turned to Zethkar. The room became quiet. He could hear the soft hum of the station's air recyclers. Zethkar stood up slowly. He was older than most of the other delegates. His blue-gray skin had many scars from old battles. His uniform had ribbons from 12 different wars. "I need time to think about this," he said. His voice was deep and careful. "This is an important decision. We should not rush." Some of the younger aliens looked disappointed. They wanted action now. But the older delegates nodded. They understood that Zethkar was known for making smart choices. "How much time do you need?" asked Ambassador Krellnox. "Give me 3 days," Zethkar replied. "I will study all the reports. Then I will give you my opinion." The meeting ended after that. The other aliens left to go to their ships or their quarters. Zethkar walked alone through the station's corridors. His heavy boots made echoing sounds on the metal floors. Harmony 7 was a big station. It had been built 50 years ago as a neutral meeting place. No weapons were allowed here. No military ships could dock here. It was supposed to be safe for everyone. Zethkar's quarters were small but comfortable. He had a bed, a desk, and a small window that looked out at the stars. On his desk were pictures of his family back on his home world. His mate and 3 children smiled at him from the frames. He sat down and looked at his reflection in the dark window. The scar across his chest was hidden under his uniform, but he could feel it. The old wound still hurt when the weather changed. That scar came from a human weapon. A human blade, to be exact. It had happened 23 years ago during the Kepler conflict. Most of the other aliens had forgotten about that small war. It only lasted 2 weeks. Only a few thousand soldiers died. By galactic standards, it was not important, but Zethkar remembered everything. He opened his computer and pulled up old military files. The words Kepler conflict, classified, appeared on the screen. Zethkar had security clearance to read these files. He had been there. He had fought in that battle. He read the first report. Human colony world attacked by Vorthak battle group. 47 Vorthak ships versus 12 human defenders. Expected easy victory for Vorthak forces. Zethkar smiled. Sadly. Expected easy victory. They had all thought it would be simple. The humans were new to space. They had small ships and old weapons. The Vorthak military was strong and experienced, but the humans had surprised everyone. Zethkar touched his chest where the scar was hidden. He remembered Captain Jake Morrison, the human who had given him that wound. Jake had been young, maybe 25 years old. He had blonde hair and green eyes. He fought like he was not afraid to die. Most species would surrender when they were outnumbered 4-1. Most species would run when their ships started breaking. Most species would negotiate when they started losing too many people. Humans did not do any of those things. Zethkar closed the files and walked to his window. Outside, he could see a human cargo ship docking at the station. It was small and ordinary looking. Nothing special about it, but Zethkar knew the truth about humans. He had learned it the hard way in the Kepler system. The other aliens in today's meeting did not understand what they were talking about. They thought humans were just another aggressive species that could be controlled with sanctions and threats. They were wrong. Zethkar made his decision. Tomorrow he would call another meeting. He would tell the other aliens what really happened during the Kepler conflict. He would explain why they should be very careful about making humans their enemy. The truth about human wars was not something most species could understand. But they needed to learn. Their lives might depend on it. The next morning, Zethkar sent messages to all the council members. The message was short. Emergency meeting in 1 hour. I have important information about human military capabilities. The aliens came quickly. They thought Zethkar would support their plan to fight the humans. They expected him to agree that humans were dangerous and needed to be stopped. They were wrong. Zethkar stood at the front of the meeting room. The big screen behind him showed a star map. A red circle marked the Kepler system. 23 years ago I fought humans for the first time, he began. His voice was calm but serious. I want to tell you what really happened. The other aliens leaned forward in their chairs. They had heard rumors about the Kepler conflict, but no one talked about it much. It was a small war. Not many people died. Most species forgot about small wars. My battle group had 47 ships, Zethkar continued. We were ordered to take control of a human colony world in the Kepler system. Intelligence reports said the humans had 12 ships defending the planet. Ambassador Krell nodded. 47 against 12. That should have been easy. That is what we thought, Zethkar said. By all military rules, the humans should have retreated, or they should have surrendered. No commander sends 12 ships against 47. He pressed a button. The screen showed pictures of human ships. They looked small compared to the Vorthak warships, but the humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. Instead, they attacked us. Some of the aliens made surprised sounds. Young Delegate Crixel spoke up. That makes no sense. Why would they attack when they had no chance to win? Zethkar smiled, but it was not a happy smile. That is what I asked myself during the battle, and for 23 years after. He showed them battle recordings from his ship's computers. The aliens watched human vessels charge straight at the much larger Vorthak fleet. The human ships fired all their weapons at once. When their guns stopped working, they did something that shocked everyone. Watch this part carefully, Zethkar said. On the screen, a human destroyer rammed directly into a Vorthak cruiser. The human ship exploded, but it took the cruiser with it. The meeting room became very quiet. They destroyed their own ship on purpose, whispered Ambassador Veltar. Yes, Zethkar confirmed. When their weapons failed, they used their ships as weapons. I lost 6 vessels to ramming attacks in the first day. He showed them more recordings. Human Marines boarding Vorthak ships and fighting in the corridors. Even when they were wounded and bleeding, they kept fighting. Most species would retreat when hurt. Humans seemed to fight harder when they were injured. This Marine took 3 plasma shots to the chest. Zethkar pointed at the screen. He should have been dead. Instead, he kept fighting for another 10 minutes. He saved his whole squad before he finally fell. The aliens were starting to look uncomfortable. This was not how civilized species fought wars. The battle lasted 6 days, Zethkar continued. Every day I expected the humans to surrender. Every day they surprised me again. He told them about the human tactics that made no sense. Human ships would explode themselves to create debris, fields. The debris would damage Vorthak ships that flew through it. It was like using your own death as a weapon. On the fourth day, their flagship was breaking apart, Zethkar said. The ship was on fire. Half the crew was dead or wounded. Any normal commander would evacuate. He paused and touched his chest where the old scar was hidden. Instead, Captain Jake Morrison led a boarding party onto my flagship. His own ship was exploding behind him and he was trying to capture my vessel. That is crazy, said Crixel. Yes, Zethkar agreed. But it almost worked. Morrison and his team fought through 7 decks of my ship. They reached the bridge. Morrison himself gave me this scar when we fought hand to hand. He opened his uniform jacket and showed them the long white scar across his chest. A human blade did this. Morrison was bleeding from multiple wounds, but he fought like a wild animal. If my security team had not arrived, he might have taken my ship. The aliens stared at the scar. They had never seen anything like it. After 6 days, the humans finally stopped fighting, Zethkar said. But not because they surrendered. They stopped because they had accomplished their mission. What mission? Asked Ambassador Krelnox. Zethkar pressed another button. The screen showed transport ships leaving the planet. Evacuation, he said simply. While their 12 warships kept my 47 ships busy, civilian transports were moving people off the planet. 30,000 humans. Men, women, children, elderly people. The room was completely silent now. When the last transport ship jumped to hyperspace, the human warships finally retreated. What was left of them? Zethkar closed his jacket and looked at each alien in the room. After the battle, I studied intelligence reports about the Kepler colony. Do you know what I found? No one answered. Nothing, Zethkar said. No military bases, no weapons factories, no strategic resources, no important technology. Just 30,000 ordinary people living ordinary lives. He let that sink in for a moment. The humans fought my entire battle group for 6 days. They lost 11 of their 12 ships. Hundreds of their people died. All to protect a planet that had no military value at all. Ambassador Veltar spoke in a whisper. They fought just to save civilians? Yes, Zethkar answered. That is when I realized something important about humans. They do not fight wars the same way we do. The meeting room felt very cold suddenly. The aliens looked at each other with worried expressions. They were beginning to understand that they had made a big mistake about humans. What do you mean? Asked Crixel. Zethkar's 4 eyes fixed on the young delegate. I mean that if you make humans your enemy, you better be prepared to fight a kind of war that most species cannot imagine. The meeting room stayed quiet for a long time after Zethkar finished his story. The aliens looked scared and confused. Finally, Ambassador Krelnox spoke. Commander, that was one battle. Maybe those humans were just crazy. Not all humans fight like that. Zethkar shook his head slowly. That is what I thought too. So after the Kepler conflict, I decided to study human history. I wanted to understand what made them fight so strangely. He pressed buttons on his control pad. The big screen changed to show images from human history books. I spent 5 years reading everything I could find about human wars. What I learned changed everything I thought I knew about warfare. The screen showed ancient human warriors with swords and shields. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, but they fight differently than any other species in the galaxy. Young Delegate Crixel raised his hand. What do you mean differently? Most species fight smart wars, Zethkar explained. We fight for territory, or resources, or trade routes. When the cost becomes too high, we make peace deals, we negotiate, we compromise. The aliens nodded. This made sense to them. War was expensive. No one wanted to waste too many lives or too much money. Humans fight what they call total war, Zethkar continued. They mobilize their entire civilization. Every factory, every farm, every person becomes part of the war effort. The screen showed pictures from human World War II. Factories building tanks and planes. women working in weapons plants, children collecting metal for bullets. Look at this conflict they called World War II, Zethkar said. It lasted 6 years. Humans fought on every continent at the same time. Over 60 million people died. Ambassador Veltar made a shocked sound. 60 million? That is more than the population of most worlds. Yes, Zethkar agreed. And they kept fighting until one side was completely destroyed. No negotiations, no peace deals, total victory or total defeat. He showed them more pictures. Bombed cities, destroyed factories, millions of refugees. Most species would have stopped fighting after the first million deaths, he continued. Humans fought harder. They built bigger bombs. They trained more soldiers. They turned their entire planets into war machines. The screen changed to show a jungle scene. Human soldiers walking through thick green plants. This is from their Vietnam War, Zethkar said. Humans fought in this jungle for 20 years. 20 years of constant fighting in a place that had no strategic value to their home country. Why? Asked Crixel. Because they believed it was the right thing to do, Zethkar answered. Humans will fight impossible wars for ideas, for principles, for people they have never met. The aliens were starting to look very uncomfortable. This was not how civilized species behaved. Zethkar showed them more examples. The human civil war, where they fought their own people for 4 years. The Crusades, where they fought religious wars for centuries. The Revolution Wars, where farmers with simple weapons defeated professional armies. Here is what scared me the most, Zethkar said. The screen showed graphs and numbers. I calculated human casualty rates from their major wars. Do you know what I found? No one answered. In most galactic conflicts, armies retreat when they lose 10% of their forces. 20% casualties means total defeat for most species. The numbers on the screen made the aliens gasp. Humans regularly fight battles with 50% casualties. Some human units have fought until 90% of their people were dead or wounded. That is impossible, whispered Ambassador Krelnox. I have the battle records, Zethkar replied. Human Marines defending an island called Iwo Jima. They fought for 36 days, 70% casualties. They never retreated. The screen showed more examples. Human paratroopers surrounded by enemies, fighting for days without supplies. Human sailors staying on sinking ships to save their friends. Human pilots flying, suicide missions to destroy enemy targets. Most species have a breaking point, Zethkar explained. A point where soldiers refuse to fight anymore, where governments make peace deals, where civilizations surrender. He looked around the room, at each alien face. Humans do not have a breaking point. They have something they call acceptable losses. They decide how many of their own people they are willing to sacrifice, and then they keep fighting until they win, or until everyone is dead. The meeting room felt like a tomb. No one wanted to speak. Zethkar was not finished. The most terrifying thing about humans is not their weapons or their tactics. It is their willingness to die for causes that other species would abandon. He showed them pictures of human monuments, walls covered with millions of names. These are their war memorials. They build them in every city, every town. They never forget their dead warriors, and they teach their children that dying for others is the highest honor. Ambassador Veltar spoke in a shaky voice. Are you saying humans want to die in wars? No, Zethkar answered. Humans love life as much as any species, but they believe some things are more important than living. Freedom, justice, protecting the weak. They will die for these ideas. The screen showed modern human military bases, thousands of soldiers training, huge ships being built, weapons that could destroy planets. After studying their history, I realized something important, Zethkar said. The Kepler conflict was not unusual for humans. It was normal. 12 ships against 47? Humans have won battles with worse odds. He showed them records of ancient human battles, small armies defeating much larger forces through determination and clever tactics. 300 Spartans held off 10,000 enemies at a place called Thermopylae. They fought until every single one was dead just to give their city more time to prepare. "Why are you telling us this?" asked Crixel. The young alien looked pale and scared. Zethkar turned off the screen and faced the council directly. "Because, if you make humans your enemy, you need to understand what kind of war you are starting. This will not be a normal conflict with negotiations and peace treaties." He pointed at each alien in turn. "Humans will fight until your species is extinct or theirs is. They do not know how to quit. They do not know how to compromise when they believe they are right. And they will turn this war into something that destroys half the galaxy." The aliens sat in stunned silence. They had come to this meeting thinking about economic sanctions and limited military action. Now they were hearing about wars that could end civilizations. "There is something else you need to know," Zethkar said quietly. "Something that changes everything." Commander Zethkar looked at the frightened faces around the meeting table. The aliens had heard enough about human warfare to understand the danger, but they had not heard the most important part yet. "What else do we need to know?" asked Ambassador Krelnox. His voice was quiet and worried. Zethkar activated his personal communication device. Secret files appeared on the big screen. The words, "Top Secret Galactic Threat Assessment," flashed in red letters. 3 months ago, our deep space sensors detected something in the outer rim," Zethkar began. "Something that should not exist." The screen showed star charts with red dots marking unknown contacts. "The Devourers are waking up." Every alien in the room went completely still. The Devourers were ancient legends, stories told to children to scare them. Machine intelligences that had destroyed 17 civilizations 3,000 years ago before going dormant. "That is impossible," whispered Ambassador Veltar. "The Devourers are myths, old stories." "I thought so too," Zethkar replied, "until our scouts confirmed it. Look at these readings." The screen displayed sensor data from the edge of the galaxy. Massive ships moving in perfect formations. Technology signatures that matched no known species. "The Devourer fleet is assembling. Our intelligence estimates they will reach inhabited space within 2 years. Young Delegate Crixel stood up suddenly. "If this is true, why are we talking about humans? We should be preparing our own defenses." Zethkar's 4 eyes fixed on the young alien. "That is exactly what the humans are doing. All those military buildups you are worried about, all those new ships and weapons, the humans are not preparing to attack us." He pressed another button. The screen showed human military bases and shipyards. "They are preparing to fight the Devourers." The meeting room erupted in confused voices. Aliens talked over each other, asking questions and making worried sounds. "Quiet!" Zethkar's voice cut through the noise. "Let me explain." The room became silent again. 6 months ago, human deep space probes detected the same signals our scouts found. But the humans did not dismiss them as impossible. They began preparing immediately. The screen showed construction projects across human space, massive shipyards building new vessels, training centers for millions of soldiers, weapon factories working day and night. The humans have been studying ancient records about the Devourers. They know what is coming better than we do. Zethkar showed them intelligence reports about human research. Teams of human scientists working around the clock. Military strategists planning for a war unlike anything in modern history. "Here is what the humans learned," Zethkar continued. "The Devourers do not negotiate. They do not take prisoners. They do not want territory or resources. They only want to destroy all organic life." The aliens looked sick with fear. This was their worst nightmare. "When the Devourers destroyed those 17 civilizations, do you know how they did it?" Zethkar asked. No one answered. "They used the same tactics every galactic species uses: calculated attacks, limited objectives, negotiated surrenders." The screen showed ancient battle records recovered from dead worlds. Every species that faced the Devourers fought normal wars. They retreated when casualties got too high. They surrendered when the situation looked hopeless. They tried to make peace deals. Zethkar's voice became very serious. The Devourers killed them all anyway. Ambassador Krell spoke in a shaky voice. What are you saying? I am saying that normal warfare will not work against the Devourers. Limited military actions will fail. Economic sanctions are meaningless against machines. Negotiated peace deals are impossible with enemies that want to exterminate you. Zethkar activated new files on the screen. The humans understand this. They are preparing to fight the kind of war that the galaxy has never seen. Total war, absolute war, war with no limits and no mercy. The screen showed human battle plans. Entire star systems turned into fortress worlds, civilian populations being relocated to protected zones, industrial planets converted to weapon production. The humans are mobilizing their entire civilization for this fight. Every ship, every soldier, every factory will be part of the war effort. They are preparing to fight until either humanity is extinct or the Devourers are destroyed. That is exactly what we are afraid of, said Crixel. It is exactly what we need, Zethkar replied firmly. He stood up and walked to the center of the room. Listen carefully. The Devourers cannot be defeated by species who fight careful, limited wars. They have destroyed 17 civilizations that fought exactly the way we do. He pointed at each alien delegate. But they have never faced a species like humans, a species that fights total war, a species that will sacrifice everything to protect others, a species that does not know how to surrender. The screen showed more human preparations, weapons designed specifically to fight machine enemies, tactics based on ancient human wars adapted for space combat, training programs that prepared soldiers for battles with no retreat and no quarter. The humans sent me a message yesterday, Zethkar said. Admiral Lisa Parker of the Human Defense Fleet. Do you know what she told me? The aliens waited. She said they have been waiting for the rest of the galaxy to realize the truth. The humans knew we would eventually understand that we need their help. Zethkar returned to his seat. So now you have a choice. You can treat the humans as enemies and spend your energy fighting them. When the Devourers arrive, they will find a galaxy divided and weak. We will all die the same way those 17 civilizations died. He paused to let that sink in. Or you can accept that humans fight wars differently than us because they need to. You can work with them to prepare for what is coming. You can learn from a species that knows how to fight enemies that cannot be reasoned with or bargained with. Ambassador Veltar spoke quietly. What kind of help would the humans want from us? Resources, industrial capacity, soldiers willing to learn their tactics, Zethkar answered, and most importantly, unity. The Devourers will try to turn us against each other. Humans know how to fight as one people with one goal. He showed them the final slide. It was a simple message. Admiral Parker is waiting for our answer. The humans will fight the Devourers with or without us, but our chances of survival are much better if we fight together. The meeting room stayed quiet for several minutes. Each alien was thinking about the terrible choice they faced. Finally, Ambassador Krell spoke. Commander, do you really believe the humans can defeat the Devourers? Zethkar touched the scar on his chest. He remembered Captain Jake Morrison fighting with wounds that should have killed him. He remembered human ships ramming enemies twice their size. He remembered 30,000 civilians saved by 12 ships against impossible odds. I believe humans are the only species crazy enough to try, he said. And sometimes crazy is exactly what you need to win impossible wars. He activated his communication device. Admiral Parker, this is Commander Zethkar. The Galactic Council is ready to talk.